Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is DBCom, and today I have another episode of Star Realms for you. Now, today I'm going to be doing just a simple versus AI game on the easy settings. And this is more going to be so that I can talk you through some of the gameplay, my decisions, and also introduce you to some of the base rules of the game, just to be able to give you folks an idea as to what's going on during more intense gameplay. So you can see I'm just going to have it set to easy, and I do have all the expansions purchased here for myself. Now, if you've just picked up the game, you may not have all those, or if you've picked it up for free, you definitely won't have access to all these, but I like to have them just they add some interesting gameplay choices for me and some new ships, new bases, and a few other bits of information. So let's get started. Alright, so we are now right into the gameplay, and right off the bat we actually have an event, which is the Galactic Summit. Each player is going to gain 7 authority. Now, in this game, authority represents your health value. Alright, now as you can see, I am going second in this game, as I do have a full hand of 5 cards. In this game, if you go first, you start with a hand of 3 cards. So, just for the sake of simplicity, I am just going to hit the play all button. And we're going to see what happens. So as you can see, there's quite an interesting collection here in the trade row. We've got the Stealth Needle, which allows us to copy any ship that we play. The Corvette, which is a great early game attack ship from the Star Empire. The Federation Shuttle, which is an amazing early game card, given it gives you access to trade, so that is our currency for this game. Next up, we have the Dreadnought, which is the late game Star Empire ship. As you can see, it has quite high attack, a very high cost, and it lets you draw a card. Next up, we have the Imperial Trader, which is a great card if you can get our hands on it. Now, I also have 2 of my gambits here, one of which is the Energy Shield, which you can see here. So whenever me and not my bases are attacked, I reduce the damage by 1. And I can get rid of the card to draw a card for myself, but that means I lose the ability. Now I did just accidentally use it there, but that's fine, because getting a card draw will be handy. And the other one I have is Rise to Power, which is just simple gain 8, draw a card. Now I'm actually going to use both of them here, because I actually want to have the $5 to get that Imperial Trader. It's a great early game card to hit. Got that. Now I've got $2 just to throw at my opponent, or sorry, not $2, 2 damage. Throw that up just to help chip away some of that early life we got from the event. Get my new hand, pass the turn, and let's see what happens. Alright, so you can see in my hand here I've got $4 and some damage. Just going to click the play all button again just to make things nice and easy. Now with my $4, the first thing I'm going to pick up is the Federation Shuttles. It's great early game trade, so I can get access to my economy. Next card I'm going to pick up is the Corvette, as it does have card draw to it, which card draw is always a great thing to have. Unfortunately, though, this is going to leave me floating 1 trade, but it's not the end of the world. Just going to throw the damage on the AI quick and pass the turn. And you can see I just picked up my Imperial Trader, so this is going to give me a slightly better hand for the economy. And depending on how my card draw goes, I should actually be able to hit the $6 mark, which would be great to get that construction hauler that's sitting there. And there we go. That gave me access to the $6 that I needed. So I'm going to pick up that construction hauler. Another great economy card. Now, unfortunately, once again, I am going to be floating that 1 point in trade, but I think it was a fairly valuable trade. Pass the turn again, and now we're starting to draw some of our good cards. I am still waiting to see some other Machine Cult faction come up, as I'm not having much of a way to scrap any cards out of my hand, but the early game card draw is going to provide us with a bit of an advantage. Now as you can see, I could have just clicked the play all, but I do like to play my actual cards just one at a time, just so I can kind of choose the order and how effects resolve. Right now it doesn't matter too much, but it's a great habit to be in, especially later in the game. So you can see I've got $5 again to spend, and I'm actually going to pick up this Cutter over here. Another great early game card, and that actually was enough to pick up a survey ship, which is fantastic. So now you can really start to see my deck coming together and starting to see some of the factions I'm picking up. But the biggest thing you really have to focus on, especially in the early game, is making sure that you get lots of trade value. Because that trade value is what allows you to get access to the better ships as we play through the game. Now as you can see, once again, I picked up that Imperial Trader. Great, that was a great early game purchase for us. I think that was well worth the 2 gambits. Because you can see now, I've got a $7 hand. So we're just going to take a look at some of the cards here. We got the Junkyard, which just allows me every turn I can scrap a card in my hand or discard pile. And it's an outpost. So that actually means that it's going to have to take damage before me or my other bases do. So I think I'm actually going to pick that card up and see if a 1-drop comes out, which it doesn't. Now the only downside is I am leaving a pair of Battle Screechers sitting out here for my opponent to pick up, which could be some great cards for the Blob to work with, especially since he has his Blob Wheel working now. But we're going to see what happens. So I'm going to pass the turn again, and let's keep it going. Now as you can see, I did just pick up my Junkyard. He just picked up a really good hand there. Dealt 11 damage. Well, let's see what happens. I'm going to start with putting my Junkyard out. And my Construction Hauler. And that didn't really get me much in the card draw, but I wasn't expecting it to get me too much. I am going to use my Junkyard here. And I'm going to get rid of that Viper. Now, Vipers are probably the best thing to scrap out of your deck early on. As they only add 1 damage, they don't do a lot, and economy is still much more important in the early game. So I'm just going to play all my cards here, and you can see I've got a hand of $5. Now, the Embassy Yacht is a great card if you're running the bases for it. It is still a generally good card without it, but there are a few other options here to look at, like these Battle Screechers. But I don't feel like I'm comfortable enough with my trade position to be able to pick those up, which leaves me looking realistically at the Freighter and the Embassy Yacht. We'll take a look at these two cards here. So the Freighter is a 4-cost Trade Federation ship that gives me 4 trade, and if I get the ally ability, the next ship I purchase actually goes to the top of your deck, which can lead to some really interesting stacking abilities. When you start picking up some of the cards that you draw, you can play this out, put a ship to the top of your deck, and then use a draw ability to pull it right away. So that's really handy. Now the other card we're going to look at, I'm just going to quickly skip through these ones. Oop, went right past it. That's the Embassy Yacht that I was just talking about. Now it's 3 trade. Again, it's another Trade Federation. It gives me 3 authority and 2 trade back. But if you have 2 more bases in play, it allows you to draw 2 cards. Alright folks, I do apologize for that brief break in the video you're going to see, as I was just getting a phone call there. But as I was saying, with this Embassy Yacht, it is another great option to look at. So, those are kind of my choices, and I think I'm actually going to go with the Embassy Yacht, because later on I am going to start picking up more bases, so it could be a good card. Now, I've only got 2 trade left, so I'm actually going to pick up an Explorer, which is kind of your base upgrade card. I'll show a bit more about it as it comes up. So now, as you can see, we're starting to hit a slightly better hand, as I've got my Imperial Trader and my Corvette, so I'm going to get the faction bonuses for both of those, but they both also let me draw cards, which is going to be great. So I'm going to start with the Imperial Trader, then my Corvette, and I just picked up my Federation Shuttle. Now, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to get the ally ability here, but that's alright, because this is going to give me a $9 hand, which is absolutely wonderful, because that's going to give me access to the Fleet HQ. Now, it may not be necessarily the best choice out of this market, but I'd like to pick that up now before my opponent has a chance to get it, as it is a card that actually allows all your ships to get an extra attack on them. So that can be handy if you're running a nice heavy draw card swarming deck. So hopefully we'll see that actually come into play and stick around for a couple of turns, because when it does, it can be quite devastating. Now, I had 7 attack there, and I just threw that out to take out my opponent's Star Market. As if you play a base on the turn when you have this out, or the card you played, it gives you either authority or trade. Both are very good, especially at this point in the game, and I really don't want my opponent to be regenerating the little damage that I'm dealing to him. And you can see I'm floating $1, and that gives me option of the Blob Fighter. Now, I'm not terribly interested in that card right now, as I don't have any other blob in my deck, and it's 3 damage, but I don't want to clog my deck up too much right now. So again, we're just going to pass the turn. Now, this is the beauty of this game, is if you do have unspent trade or attack that you could actually use, the game will tell you. Just to kind of give you that, oh, are you sure you want to do that moment. And of course, as I was saying, I do want to do that. See, now our opponent's deck is starting to set up now. As you can see, he's got like the trade pod, the stealth needle working together to put in some good damage on me. But I'm starting to get my card draw in play. So you can see I got the survey ship and my Corvette. So that's 2 extra cards. Now, unfortunately, because I haven't been able to scrap many cards, I haven't been able to thin my deck out as much. So that part is not helping me too much. Use the cutter just for some quick regen and another couple of bucks in trade. And you can see I'm sitting on 6 right now. Now, since I am running Star Empire, I am actually going to pick up the Royal Redoubt at this point. This is a really good card, as it just adds 3 damage. It's an outpost with 6 health, and if I can get the faction bonus, my opponent's going to discard a card from their hand, which is a great ability to have because it means that they're going to have less to work with on their turn. Now, as you can see, I've got 4 damage here, but my opponent has the Port of Callout, which is an outpost with 6 health. So I can't deal enough damage to defeat that, because with bases and outposts, you have to deal enough damage on your turn to take them out. Otherwise, they stay put, so their health regenerates every round. So unfortunately, that means that this 4 damage is going to be wasted. Now there's that lovely Fleet HQ that I was just talking about a moment ago. I just picked it up with a nice big handful of ships. Now I've also got some card draws, so if I'm lucky, I might be able to draw into something else and keep the chain going. Let's see what happens, shall we? Start with that Fleet HQ, because every point of damage helps. Start with the Construction Hauler. Then the Imperial Trader. Finally the Embassy Yacht, and that's going to give me the Ally ability. And the next base I buy is going to go straight into play, which is a great ability. So out of bases, we have 2 choices right now. We have the Central Office, which gives me 2, and I may put the next ship I acquire on top of my deck. Plus, it gives me the ability to draw a card, which is great. Or I also have access to the Trading Post, which is a 4 health outpost that gives me authority or trade. And if I scrap it, I can get a little bit of extra damage in. But I just can't pass up that Central Office, because it's going to go straight into play, which is also going to give me another card draw. And it also gave me a doll, and it also gave me a buck. So as you can see, I'm able to chain this quite well, and the next card I buy is going to go on top of my deck. So I'm actually going to pick up the Imperial Frigate next. That's going to go straight to the top of my deck, and I still have $3 to spend. So I'm starting to look at some interesting options here. Now, that trade bot is there, and I'm very interested by that card, but right now it is not quite as worth it to me anymore. So we're going to have to see what I can do. Now, I'm actually looking at these 2 blob fighters here, because if I get these going, they're going to let me draw cards. But they're not on faction for me, which could also create some issues. So I think I'm going to start by picking up the Imperial Fighter and see what comes out of the deck. Now, I've got $2, and I don't really want to waste it, so I'm actually going to put it into an Explorer. Because an Explorer, even if I draw it, I can get rid of it almost at any time I want, as long as I've drawn it. So you see, I've got 11 damage sitting here now, so I'm actually going to throw 6 at the Port of Call, and I'm going to put 5 at the Blob Wheel, because that's going to prevent his Blob from getting the faction bonuses if he only draws the 1. Plus, it stops a couple of points of damage my way. However, the trade-off for that is that I did not deal any damage to my enemy. So we're going to pass the turn here, and we're going to see what happens. Now you see, my opponent actually got a really strong economy hand here, which is going to be interesting, because it's going to allow him to start setting up his deck. Now you can see I've got a lot of blob in the trade row right now, so that's going to lead us to have to make some interesting decisions. Now an interesting effect is that the Central Office is actually highlighting some of the ships that you can get in purple, because those are the ones that, if I purchase those, are going to go straight to the top of my deck. So we're going to have to see what comes out of doing this. But the first things first, I'm going to use my Junkyard ability, because I do not want to forget how to use that. So again, we're going to get rid of the other Viper in my deck, as each starting deck starts with 8 Scouts and 2 Vipers. And I'll start putting down the rest of my cards. And you can see I'm starting to get faction bonuses and forcing my opponent to discard cards. Now, because I just played the Federation Shuttle, it also let me shuffle my deck and draw a card. So it's a really good thing I used Junkyard first, or else I would have potentially had to lose a card from my hand. Now, as you can see, I've got 11 damage sitting in front of me. So I'm actually going to play 6 to get rid of Star Market, and the other 5 is going to go to my opponent. Now, Finally, I've got a couple of scrap abilities I can use here. So I can get rid of the Explorer to dish out 2 damage, and the Imperial Frigate, which is this card here, can be tossed to let me draw a card. Now, this can be really great if you're really digging for that answer at the end of the game to try to get that last couple of points of damage on your opponent. So it's always something to keep in mind if you want to deal a big alpha strike in hopes that it's going to pay off. You can use that kind of ability there. I myself have actually used this in gameplay to actually deal 35 points of damage to my opponent at one time, and make him discard his entire hand by making use of a whole bunch of scrap abilities. Now that did severely weaken my deck, but it left a pretty big smile on both me and my opponent's faces as we realized that was a huge play. Now, as you can see, I've got $8, and the next ship I buy is going to the top of my deck. Now there's just a lot of blob on the field, so I think I might actually pick some up now. You can see there's the blob carrier, which deals 7 damage, and if you get the faction bonus with it, it does also allow you to acquire the next ship out of the market you want for free. And that's a great ability. I've got $2. I'm actually going to pick up these blob fighters here, because they're going to let me start drawing cards and more damage when I can pair them off with my blob abilities. So you can see that's my turn. I'm going to pass it over and get her going. So you see, now thanks to my central office, that allowed me to put my blob carrier on top of my deck. So that's sitting in my hand waiting for me. Now I have to see what my opponent's going to do here, because he's got 5 damage, which means he's probably going to take out my junkyard. But you notice he's buying a lot of cards. As you can see, he's going to have quite a big discard pile in deck, so it's going to take him a long time to actually cycle through his deck. So first things first, we're actually going to use a Corvette to get that card draw to see what happens there. And I've just picked up my Royal Redoubt. I'm just going to add some damage, and it's going to force my opponent to discard a card once it comes up to his turn. So that's going to be a great ability to use. I got the Blob Carrier. Now this is going to work for some damage, but that's okay, because 7 damage adds up to quite a bit in this game. As you can see, off of just a couple of cards, I've got almost 15 points of damage. I'm going to have 18 by the time this turn is done. And I've also got $5, and the next card I buy, again, is actually going to go to the top of my deck. So as you can see, I'm starting to really make use of that central office's ability here. Now again, I've got a few different choices: the Imperial Frigate, Survey Ship, but I think I'm going to take the Frigate because I really want to start messing with my opponent's hand. Now, I do have the ability to pick up a Battle Pod or an Explorer here, but I'm really not interested in either one of those right now, so I'm just going to pass on that and to send my 18 damage to my opponent. Now we're going to pass the turn again. As you can see, I've just picked up a great hand. My opponent's going to be forced to discard a couple of cards, and if he can't get rid of my Royal Redoubt, I'm going to make him lose 3 cards out of his hand. So that's going to be really crippling. So we're going to start by using the Survey Ship to draw a card. Then I use my Cutter to pair with my Central Office again to get me another card. Now I'm going to use up my Imperial Frigate and my Imperial Freighter. As you can see, the Easy AI is now discarding 3 cards out of their hand right now, and I'm sitting on 21 points of damage. And I still have a few more points to pick up. So as you can see, I've now got 24 points of damage that I can actually throw at my opponent. Using my Cutter, I'm going to get rid of that, and it's going to give me 26 points. Now, it's not quite enough to finish my opponent off because they have that 4 health outpost out there. But this is going to leave them sitting at 4 health, which is going to leave them very easy to pick off on my next turn. But we're going to take a quick skim through my cards just to see if I have any abilities I could make use of. Now, because it is just 4 points of damage, I'm actually going to use some of my Alpha Strike abilities here just to see what I can do. But actually, looking at the board here, I can pick up this Imperial Frigate and put it on top of my deck, so I'm actually going to use that here. Imperial Frigate goes to the top of my deck. I'm now going to use my Imperial Frigate that I have in play to draw a card, which gets me my other Imperial Frigate, which is going to push me over the top and put me at 33 points of damage, which is enough to finish my opponent. So this is the situation I was talking about. When you're starting to get into these situations at the end of the game where you're really close to finishing your opponent, those little abilities can be a great way to do it. Now, of course, in an actual game with an opponent, they would actually go to take out your central office as quick as they can, because most experienced players know how powerful that ability can be. And especially in a deck like mine where I'm running a lot of card draw, that can be really devastating to an opponent, as you're about to see here. But for the fun of it, I am going to use my scrap abilities here just to see how far I can actually push this game. And as you can see, I'm pushing it quite far right now. Picking up lots of card draw, lots of damage. So you can see what I'm doing, how much I'm messing with my opponent here. I'm up to 52 points of damage, and my opponent is discarding my entire hand. Now, of course, I could have ended this a while ago. This end bit is just for fun, because I really just want to see how big of an alpha strike I can get my deck up to. Now I'm making my opponent discard 6 cards. This is beyond the realm of reasonable, because they're not going to get 6 cards unless an event comes up that gives them another card. So we have effectively made them discard their entire hand. We're going to deal massive amounts of damage, and you can see my authority level is at 62. You start at 50 in this game. That is the power of running card draw with a blue and yellow deck. So that is Trade Federation and the Star Federation. Running those two together is an amazing combo. But this is just because of the way the market was shown up for me. So, let's finish this game. I'm just going to buy some cards for fun, just to see what happens. Like, I got the big Battle Blob that just came out. There's a Corvette for card draw. I'll take that. At this point, this is just for fun. And you can see 56 points of damage. So I'm going to take out the space station, and I've got 52 points of damage. And that's the game. So that was a very good game for me. I don't usually get quite that good when I'm playing. It must have just been a great market, or I might just be getting better from playing this on the computer a few more times. Either way, a couple more games like this, and we will probably be ready to start taking on all of the campaign quests. Now, those offer their own unique challenges in every game, as different things change with each mission. The other thing I may look into a little bit later, once I got a few more games under my belt, is starting to tackle the online ladder play, and just to see how far I can get and how I compare to the people around me. But for now, that is today's game. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.